The Poison God Palace was once the true ruler of the entire demon realm, and even the many forces within the demon god realm trembled before it. However, that was during the reign of the Poison God, a time of glory now gone. After the Poison God's fall, the glory faded. So every 100 years, the Poison God Palace holds a grand election that focuses on trials involving poison. The reason for this is twofold. On one hand, it is to maintain the supreme status of the Poison God Palace in the Poison God realm, and on the other, it is to select outstanding talents to be nurtured as fresh blood for the palace, to eventually help counter the attacks from other forces in the demon realm. As for the Poison God, even after countless selections, no one has ever possessed the qualifications to inherit that title. After all, among the known strong figures in the Poison God Palace, there are more than one with the power of the fourfold reincarnation stage. For such powerful figures to be swayed and willingly assist someone, it would be impossible without the suppression and prestige of the Poison God's two legendary artifacts. However, a certain individual who has recently been at the center of attention seems to be on the verge of breaking this deadlock. The Holy Maiden of the Mirror Moon Palace, Little Fairy Doctor. It is said that this person not only inherits the reincarnation seal of the Poison God Mysterious Crane, but also possesses the Holy Venomous Pill, one of the two legendary artifacts of the Poison God. These two items, if found on anyone, would surely stir up waves of astonishment. Now that they are found on the same person, the shock and surprise are enough to leave countless people in a state of disbelief. It seems the Poison God Palace is about to change. The bizarre structure of the 3 palaces and 6 gates in the Poison God Palace may soon be dismantled. But despite the shock, even with the support of the Mirror Moon Palace, this Holy Maiden still faces a considerable gap when compared to the other 2 palaces, which has led to a growing discontent and murmurs of dissatisfaction towards her. Of course, whether this legendary Holy Maiden can turn the tide and become the new Poison God, or fall to the hands of the Poison God Palace's upper echelons, remains to be seen. Time passes, and the day of the Poison God election arrives as scheduled. The location for the election is set in the heart of the Poison God domain, atop the central mountain range of the 3 palaces, at the Poison God altar. With the arrival of the election day, the area has been heavily fortified. Even a true fourfold reincarnation stage expert would be unable to leave with success, revealing just how immense the hidden power of this Poison God altar is. Let's go. At the Mirror Moon Palace, the palace master of the Mirror Moon Palace, dressed in a simple gown, stood up, her eyes filled with a rare calm. She spoke gently to the people in front of her. Xiao, Little Fairy Doctor, and Xun'er exchanged glances, and the 4 of them slowly walked out of the Mirror Moon Palace's mountain range. They mounted a mighty poisonous beast and ascended into the sky, heading toward their destination. Dozens of minutes later, the 4 of them landed at the foot of a towering mountain range. Here lies the true heart of the Poison God Palace, the foot of the Poison God Altar Mountain. The entire mountain range was surrounded by countless poisonous mists, and faint, ancient auras could be felt lingering. Even the altar itself seemed twisted and sickly, as though it had been corroded by endless venom, becoming a terrifying sight. At the foot of the mountain, several uneven pits appeared, releasing strange, eerie energies. While these energies were weak, they created a rare sense of unease in the hearts of those nearby. The defenses are indeed severe, Xiao said, his eyes scanning the area. He could detect faint, yet powerful auras hidden within, likely the guards lying in wait for the Poison God election. Such power, if gathered, would be difficult to overcome even for him. Though, if it came to that, Xiao wouldn't mind showing the experts in the Poison God Palace what the new system of the Great Thousand Worlds, demons, is capable of. Let's go. Let's head to the center of the altar. I'm sure many are already waiting impatiently. This election, even if it turns into a farce, we will still emerge victorious. After fighting for 1,000 years, in the end, I will win. The palace master of the Mirror Moon Palace's beautiful eyes shimmered with a mysterious fluctuation as she spoke, as though there was something more to her words. At this point, although only 4 of them were present, it was clear they had already made thorough preparations. Yet, Xiao and Xun'er remained unaware of this. Let's go. Xiao Yin held Xun'er's hand, and they quietly followed behind the little fairy doctor, their gazes moving towards the altar's mountain. Ahead, a towering staircase of crimson poisonous mist seemed to pierce the sky. The steps, made of a highly corrosion-resistant blue stone, rose gently into the air. As Xiao Yin walked upon them, he closed his eyes and felt the supreme poison power contained within these ancient steps, a rare sense of calm sweeping over him. The four of them continued along the path. On either side of the heaven-reaching staircase, countless figures appeared and disappeared intermittently. Their presence radiated formidable energy, but their strength was only that of beings beneath the reincarnation level. It was clear that only those who had reached the reincarnation stage could step onto this heaven-reaching staircase, indicating that reincarnation-level experts were rare. Every reincarnation was a powerful figure within the Great Thousand Worlds. Thank you all. We will forever remember your kindness. As they walked, the Mirror Moon Palace Master noticed the anxious look on Little Fairy Doctor's face. She couldn't help but speak to Xiao Yin, then her gaze kept lingering on Little Fairy Doctor. On the other hand, Little Fairy Doctor kept avoiding Xiao Yan's eyes, seemingly unable to face him directly. It was clear that there were things the two of them were keeping secret. However, Xiao Yin and Xun'er didn't press the matter. They knew Little Fairy Doctor wouldn't harm them, and the reason for her silence was likely due to some unspoken difficulty. The people from Mirror Moon Palace have arrived. A minute later, the four of them reached the end of the staircase. At the end of the mountain range was a vast square, nearly a kilometer wide. In the center of the square was the poison god altar, surrounded by countless figures. The air around the altar was thick with toxic mist, swirling around the ancient structure. The figures standing around it included Poison God Palace guards and many powerful figures under the Poison God Palace's command. Of course, there was also the powerful figure presiding over the election, as well as some key members of the Poison God Palace. Who now that we're here? Let's take our seats. The leader, an elderly woman dressed in pure white robes, stood atop the altar, holding a strange and sinister poison staff. She gently walked toward a fire cauldron in the center of the altar. Inside the cauldron, a faint, eerie flame flickered, resembling ghostly fire, but its shape was identical to the legendary Poison God Cauldron. Let the Poison God election begin. Leaders of Monster Moon Palace, Cold Moon Palace, Mirror Moon Palace, and the four Poison Maidens, please take your seats. Her voice echoed, filling the entire altar with an eerie silence. Though her voice seemed calm, it carried a pressure so immense that it felt as if it could shatter the heavens and earth. Is this truly the fourfold reincarnation stage? Xiao Yin muttered quietly in his heart. He and Little Fairy Doctor, along with the others, sat down quietly at their designated seats within the three palaces. Gradually, the power within their bodies began to stir. Xiao Yin, brother, I'm here too. Just as Xiao Yin was lost in thought, a gentle and playful voice, laced with a touch of mischief, echoed through his soul sea. Although the voice belonged to Xun'er, it carried a hidden power, one that was capable of overwhelming the entire world, similar to the strength of the master of the 9 mystical flames. At that moment, the Poison God election at the Poison God Square officially began. The square was now packed with thousands of people. Among them, only a handful were reincarnation-level experts. However, many Poison God Palace guards were discreetly hidden in the crowd. If any disturbances were to occur, the instigators would likely be swiftly killed on the spot. In the center of the square stood the altar, which was intricately sculpted from unknown black soil. Along its edges, there were slightly raised stone seats, and on these seats sat only 9 people. 4 from Mirror Moon Palace, 3 from Cold Moon Palace, and 1 from Monster Moon Palace. Is that the filthy Venom Maiden from Monster Moon Palace? After some time, as the elder in charge of the ceremony began to channel the energy from the Poison God Cauldron, releasing waves of terrifying power that shook the soul, Xun'er looked up and felt a slight tremor in her heart. The woman sitting calmly before them was dressed in a gray gown, her eyes half closed as if resting. The gown tightly clung to her delicate form, complementing her serene, devilish face. She resembled a saint of venom, even more captivating than Xun'er herself. The sacred flame? The filthy venom maiden did not speak, but gently tilted her neck, as if sensing something. That little bastard. On the other side, Long Qingchen and Long Yu Condensation, two poison maidens, seethed with hatred toward little fairy doctor and Xiao Yin, wishing they could slap them dead on the spot. As time passed, aside from the elders stirring the energy in the poison god cauldron, releasing a strange, intoxicating fragrance, the entire altar remained eerily quiet. After about half an hour, a peculiar energy fluctuation spread from the cauldron, carrying a wave of ancient power that had been accumulating for countless years. A powerful pressure, capable of dominating the world, exploded outward. The Poison God election begins. Will any of the Poison God Palace's subordinates challenge the 4 poison maidens of the 3 palaces? These individuals are all elite warriors under the command of the Poison God Palace. Their gathering here serves 2 purposes. One is to witness the final outcome of this Poison God election, and the other is to have their trained poison maidens face off against the poison maidens of the 3 palaces. If any of them perform well, their status will undoubtedly rise as a result. Boom! The energy Poison God cauldron flickered and dissipated in place, then traversed through layers of clouds and mist. At the center of the altar, atop the towering clouds, an ancient poison cauldron was formed. This marks the symbol of the Poison God election. Even though it was just an energy apparition, its power was truly terrifying. How about I give it a try? As the atmosphere around them quieted down, Xiao Yin couldn't help but speak. The poison maiden from the Monster Moon Palace, Filthy, is probably the one person in the Poison God Palace who truly poses a danger to Xiao Yin. No, this person's poison cultivation is too powerful. Even the elders in our palace are trembling with fear. Let me go instead, little fairy doctor said, glaring at Xiao Yin, her expression cold and serious. Scorpion Serpent Sect, defeated. 10,000 Venom Sect, defeated. One by one, the genius poison maidens cultivated by powerful sects fell to Filthy, without even being able to land a single move. Xiao Yin slowly stood up, an invisible force also emanating from the clouds, suppressing the many forces within his body. He moved lightly, and then a deep voice rang out from within him. The experts of Mirror Moon Palace are taking action. Hee, this is going to be interesting. The Monster Moon Palace and Mirror Moon Palace have been mortal enemies since ancient times. Whispers filled the square. Mirror Moon Palace, Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin took 10 steps, moving away from the edge of the altar. He raised his head slightly and looked indifferently at the emotionless woman before him, speaking calmly. Do you know why my name is Filthy? Filthy Poison Maiden lifted her head, a sinister, chilling smile flickering in her eyes. No. Xiao Yin shook his head. In my eyes, those who are not of my kind must have different hearts. They are truly filthy and must be eradicated. And those of the same origin? Even if they are of the same origin, strength still matters. The weak are filthy and must be crushed. So let's begin. I am also quite curious about what makes the Poison Maidens, hailed as true geniuses in the Poison God Palace, stand out. Xiao Yin spoke indifferently, and an extremely terrifying fluctuation, like a tsunami, erupted within his body. As you wish. Filthy Poison Realm. With a command, Filthy Poison Maiden unleashed a beam of poisonous mist directly toward Xiao Yin. Whoosh. Xiao Yin furrowed his brow, spinning to dodge. However, the poisonous mist beam hit the void beside him, and it began to twist strangely. A massive, gray-white domain filled the entire Poison God altar square. In the Filthy Poison Realm, the ground was covered with deadly poison mist and poison liquid, and even the ground beneath Xiao Yan's feet began to form repulsive gray-white bubbles. The bubbles suddenly exploded, releasing an odd and dizzying force. As the Filthy Poison Realm descended, countless gray-white poison forces continuously eroded and compressed the stable void. The oppressive atmosphere made Xiao Yan's nerves tense up involuntarily. Such a terrifying Filthy Poison Realm. Xiao Yan's body was being suppressed by a power like never before, and he narrowed his eyes. The powers of his Dragon God transformation and Battle soul began to brew within him, ready for action at any moment. This filthy poison maiden's strength appeared to be at the peak of the second reincarnation stage, but when combined with her poison arts, even those at the quasi-third reincarnation stage might have to retreat temporarily. Whoosh! Suddenly, within the gray-white filthy poison realm, countless poison mists surged, gathering into a massive poison tree over 100 feet tall, with a strange fruit hanging from it. The poison tree fruit was entirely black, with roots that were sticky like mud. Even the roots and leaves of the tree bearing the fruit had subtle, almost imperceptible gray-white lines. Minor immortal arts, toxic mist devour seed. The voice of filthy poison maiden could not be seen, but a chilling cold snort echoed. Instantly, the poison tree's body shattered, and with terrifying elasticity, the toxic fruit shot directly towards Xiao Yan's direction. As it passed through the air, a terrifying tearing sound rang out, and the void hummed. Gray-white corrosive acidic liquid flowed, as if it could dissolve all things with ease. Too strong. Countless people were stunned by the power of the filthy poison maiden's attack. This terrifying force, which pierced through the void like the divine power of heaven and earth, seemed to be beyond their ability to resist. If it were to fall, half of the poison god altar would be destroyed in an instant, and an overwhelming sense of fear surged from the heart. However, in contrast, Xiao Yan, who was facing the filthy venom maiden, seemed to have either been scared out of his wits or had some other plan. He stood there quietly, eyes closed, his still form resembling a target ready to be slaughtered. This guy, has he completely given up on struggling, or does he have some other plan? On the Poison God Plaza, watching the battle between Xiao Yan and the filthy venom maiden, all eyes were fixed on the two as whispers spread. Everyone understood that Mirror Moon Palace and Monster Moon Palace were undoubtedly the central figures in this election. As for Xiao Yan and the filthy venom maiden, both were formidable figures within their respective palaces, and the outcome of their duel could affect some important matters to come. For example, the granting of the Poison God Crown. Xiao Yan, brother. Watching the terrifying scene of the poisonous mist world in the field, such a shocking sight caused Xun'er, who had been sitting on the altar stone seat for a long time, to suddenly have her heart race. Her hand clenched tightly, and a thick golden flame flickered faintly. The strength of the filthy venom maiden was far superior to that of the two venom maidens of Cold Moon Palace. Even with such methods, Xun'er had an unsettling feeling that the latter hadn't yet used her full strength. Hoo-hoo. Xiao Yan took a deep breath, and countless powers began to churn within him. After all, both he and Xun'er shared a special connection, and he naturally understood her concerns. Though the attack was powerful, it posed no real threat to him, especially with his sacred flame. It seems that the so-called Mirror Moon Palace VIPs aren't as terrifying as the rumors say. On the altar stone seat, Cold Moon Palace Master, dressed in a white gown, exuded the grace of a calm beauty. She slowly opened her eyes, her voice filled with both serenity and disdain. From the matter of the two venom maidens and the existence of the holy maiden known as Little Fairy Doctor, her hatred for Mirror Moon Palace had only deepened. Palace Master Cold Moon is jumping to conclusions too soon. After all, this guy has already defeated the two venom maidens of Cold Moon Palace. In response to Cold Moon Palace Master's sneer, Mirror Moon Palace Master also spoke slowly. Her voice was like a gentle spring breeze, but everyone could sense the warning beneath it. You. Hearing Mirror Moon Palace Master's words, Cold Moon's calm expression began to show traces of visible anger. The anger spread, accompanied by a pungent, foul stench that slowly expanded. Such power, a force that even the heavens could witness, was clearly a special energy unique to beings of their level. Previously, it was only strong enough to cause a powerful fluctuation in those at the fourfold reincarnation stage. The Poison God election is no child's play. You should all be more careful. The Monster Moon Palace Master, sitting in the leading position, wore a blue dress, her mysterious aura like mist swirling around her. A hollow silver hairpin adorned her flowing hair. With her eyes closed, she spoke indifferently, seemingly unconcerned with the battle between the two below. She stood quietly, as if waiting for something. The other two palace masters slowly shook their heads. However, the aura emanating from the monster moon palace master was far more terrifying than before. They all turned their attention back to the battle in the field. At that moment, a blazing, dazzling glass-like light suddenly flashed across the sky, and a small figure slowly rose into the air, countless fiery lights converging behind him. Glass sacred wings. The fiery wings, as large as 1,000 meters, flapped in the air, and a venomous fruit that could destroy everything was suddenly trapped in the void by the furious, scorching wind from the wings, unable to move. Whom. Looking at Xiao Yin, who had mysteriously grown fiery wings, countless people's pupils contracted. It was as though they had sensed something. The fluctuation emanating from the glass wings was too powerful and divine. A keen observer could immediately recognize it as the wave of the sacred flame. Sacred flame, quite impressive. But this chaotic flame power, what exactly is it from the sacred flame ranking? I've never seen it before. At that moment, Monster Moon Palace Master, her eyes that had been closed, suddenly opened. She gazed at Xiao Yan's glass sacred wings and spoke. Explosion. In the field, the filthy venom maiden also noticed the terrifying power in the fiery wings. Without hesitation, a cold voice echoed as her mouth moved. The venomous fruit, trapped in midair by the glass wings, shrank slightly before bursting open like fireworks, unleashing a thick, green poisonous mist storm that could engulf the void. Thud. Seeing this, Xiao Yin sneered and raised his hand, enveloping it in flames, which contained a faint spatial force, directly suppressing it. The vast power of space and the sacred flame intertwined, instantly choking the poisonous mist storm in its cradle. The filthy poison realm, toxic swamp. Watching Xiao Yin suppress and extinguish the immense power contained within the poison mist fruit, the filthy venom maiden roared once more. The poison realm domain extended again, and in the blink of an eye, a terrifying poisonous world of sticky swamps covered the ground. Within the strange poisonous mist swamp domain, waves of nauseating stench surged forth, resembling a death swamp that had accumulated over countless years, filled with an overwhelming aura of deathly oppression. Beneath the poisonous swamp, massive swamp mud pillars rose relentlessly, like towering waves of destruction, continuously surging, creating a shockingly grand and imposing scene. Below these rolling swamp mud pillars, a colossal figure, as large as a mountain, lay quietly in ambush. Although it had not revealed its full form, the suffocating and shocking presence it exuded filled Xiao Yan's heart with unease. It was a poisonous beast, one of the secret weapons carefully cultivated by the filthy venom maiden. Its power had reached an unknown level. Has it isolated everyone? Poisonous beast? Xiao Yan's glazed holy wings slowly flapped, and with each flap, the void in this domain trembled slightly. At that moment, several powers within his body began to surge. Sacred flame, dragon god claw. A low voice echoed, and Xiao Yan's eyes exploded with a fierce and vicious aura. His body trembled as he broke through the void and charged forward. Roar, roar, roar. The gigantic poisonous beast, hidden beneath the poisonous mist swamp, stirred. Its immense form, like a black hole, spewed a terrifying toxic mist, swallowing the void domain and heading straight for Xiao Yin with the intention to suppress him. Boom! The scorching energy collided with the overwhelming poisonous mist, creating an explosion of power. Xiao Yin, like a beast who had lost all reason, was wrapped in dragon scales of cyan hue, and with the glazed sacred flame dragon god claw, he slashed towards it. Truly worthy of the most gifted poison maiden in the poison god palace. The two colossal forces clashed and slowly weakened. The scorching energy storm rampaged through this shattered domain, the immense pressure pressing the filthy venom maiden's tidy skirt tightly against her skin, outlining her alluring curves. However, it was accompanied by a maddening, crazed smile. Beneath her feet, the poisonous beast's body was scorched and riddled with wounds by the sacred flame, with glaring blood marks clearly visible. On the other hand, Poisonous mist strangely seeped through Xiao Yan's dragon scales, entering his skin. His complexion turned ashen, the pain burning through his organs, making him wish for death. This seemingly simple confrontation had ended in a deadlock? A look of shock appeared in the eyes of countless onlookers, even Xiao Yan, who had been an insignificant figure in the Poison God Palace, now appeared towering and majestic. However, the forces from both Xiao Yan and the filthy Venom Maiden still did not dissipate in the remaining filthy domain. Instead, there was a frantic surge of energy, growing more intense by the second. Ha ha ha. You are the first to force me to this extent in the entire Poison God Palace. The filthy Venom Maiden's figure appeared. Her once fair skin was now marred with severe burn marks, the flesh beneath scorched almost to the point of rot by Xiao Yan's glazed sacred wings. She looked grotesque and twisted. Even beneath her skin, strange creatures seemed to writhe beneath the blood and flesh, making the scene eerie and terrifying. These creatures were like living venomous insects, their poisonous power enough to make anyone tremble with fear. Despite this, the filthy Venom Maiden trembled, clearly enduring terrifying corrosion. This scene sent shivers down the spine of anyone who witnessed it. Ignoring her burned body, the filthy Venom Maiden slowly floated into the air, her size rapidly expanding. The venomous insects hidden inside her body wriggled, her heart and her chest twisted and swayed, as if some ancient, evil force was beginning to awaken. The cold, deathly aura emanating from it made Xiao Yan's body tremble uncontrollably. However, Xiao Yan showed no fear. A powerful, rebellious force surged within him, and his eyes filled with exhilaration. The same evil power within him, like a newborn child, began to awaken slowly, blooming with endless greed. It was the agitation of his demonic bloodline. Beneath the Poison God Palace, when the demon cube was crushed, it failed to work. As a result, there was now an opportunity for Xiao Yan to fully harness the power of the demon without being corrupted. If the accumulated demonic energy wasn't released, it would likely cause severe harm to Xiao Yan. Of course, with the strength of the filthy Venom Maiden standing before him, it was far from enough to trigger Xiao Yan's demonic powers. The real opponents were the demonic Moon Palace Master and the many powerful figures lurking in the shadows, eyeing little fairy doctor. Xiao Yan knew that the Poison God Palace was undoubtedly a dragon's den, but since he had chosen to come here to assist little fairy doctor, he would do whatever it took to ensure she remained safe. Hallowed Flame Fusion. In the vast, gray-white domain, the polluted, suffocating air was occasionally pierced by a pair of glazed wings sweeping across the entire realm. Each time they unfurled, the strength of the poison mist inside the barrier significantly weakened. Beneath the glazed wings was a seemingly frail shadow, surrounded by 5 distinct hallowed flames. Under Xiao Yan's exquisite control, the flames slowly converged towards his chest. A fire lotus platform, barely visible, flickered into view. At its center was a tranquil 5-colored lotus that seemed faint but contained an overwhelming power that transcended the heavens and earth. Even some powerful figures in the altar couldn't help but freeze in astonishment upon seeing this. What a terrifying technique! This level of attack is definitely on par with a true, powerful immortal art-level combat skill, and with the hallowed flame enhancing it, the power is even more formidable than ordinary immortal arts. But something seems off about this hallowed flame. The demonic Moon Palace Master smirked as she watched Xiao Yan unleash such a terrifying attack, a trace of mockery crossing her lips. It seemed as though everything was under her control. 3-step burial divine guide. Filthy power, perish here. At this moment, the filthy Venom Maiden's mouth twisted into a mocking grin. Her face contorted like that of a psychopath, and she roared, her voice tearing through the sky as it aimed at Xiao Yan. A moment later, her hand slowly opened, releasing a quiet grayish orb from her palm. Endless deathly poison mist began to pour out, and the instant it appeared, all the poison mist and residual energy from the glazed wings within the filthy poison realm solidified. A terrifying, soul-shattering wave of energy rippled outward. If Xiao Yan was struck, it would either leave him seriously wounded or, obliterate both his body and soul. Fusion. Seeing this, Xiao merely shrugged and smiled. He raised his hand, and the 5 flames, each glowing with distinctly different power, fully formed and then surged forward. Fireheart Heavenly Rock? Ghost Face Soul Rock? How is it possible for a human to contain so many hallowed flames at once? Won't he explode from the overload? What's going on here? As everyone watched Xiao actions, their minds were in a state of shock. The 5 frenzied hallowed flames surrounding Xiao made the entire center of the altar boil with energy. Gurgle. 5 hallowed flames. At that moment, even the usually calm demonic Moon Palace Master stood up from her stone seat, her beautiful eyes slowly locking onto Xiao. A trace of astonishment flickered in her gaze. The filthy poison realm, which had initially enveloped the entire world, was now under the control of the filthy venom maiden. It spread out only around herself and Xiao, allowing everyone present to clearly witness everything happening. Sigh, this guy. Seeing Xiao actions, the Mirror Moon Palace Master's concern deepened. Xiao actions clearly signified his stance, but at the same time, they had made countless powerful enemies. With 5 types of hallowed flames, this alluring chip was enough to attract the killing intent of numerous factions. Boom! Within the filthy poison realm, Xiao 5-colored hallowed flames began to fuse, the raging flames surging everywhere. Each time they leapt, the surrounding void in the filthy poison realm twisted and shattered. On the other side, the grayish orb in the filthy venom maiden's hand was absorbing her vitality. The 2 overwhelming forces, like twin-dimensional storms, would ignite with the slightest spark. Poison God's legacy. The gray-white glow resembled supreme divine power falling from the 9 heavens as the grayish orb moved, merging countless poisonous energies into the void. Wherever it passed, the space shattered, and a terrifying, melting touch radiated from the seemingly fragile gray orb as it hurtled towards Xiao. Xiao eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. He laughed at the filthy venom maiden's overconfidence, and his gaze suddenly turned to the demonic Moon Palace Master outside the domain, as if declaring war. Buddha's Fury Reincarnation. Xiao roared, unleashing his soul power and the flame mantra to their limits. Blood surged, and the fire lotus platform, carrying the 5-colored lotus, howled outward. The 5-colored flames clashed with the grayish-white energy, and an extremely terrifying dimensional storm mysteriously emerged from the domain. The storm's arrival caused everything to fall into silence. Xiao body was enveloped in endless flames, like a supreme ruler who controlled countless flames in the world, his eyes indifferent as he watched everything unfold. On the other side, the filthy venom maiden's smile faded, replaced by astonishment. Her proud grayish-white pearl, under the corrosion of the 5-colored sacred flames, had turned deep and dark, as if it were on the verge of shattering completely. Explode for me! The filthy venom maiden fell into a frenzy, and with a roar, the grayish-white pearl contracted slightly before exploding completely. If that's the case, then explode? Xiao took a deep breath and slowly clenched his palm. At that moment, something seemed to shatter within the domain, and 2 terrifying waves of power capable of destroying the heavens and earth surged forth. The entire poison mist domain was filled with smoke and chaos, trembling uncontrollably. The dazzling flames and grayish-white deathly toxic mist swirled around the domain, now riddled with countless black vortexes. How is this possible? Looking at the collapsing poison realm, the filthy venom maiden stood dumbfounded, her poisonous beast behind her also on the brink of death. Yet, it released a gentle aura to protect her. Boom! The scorching flames swept across, burning the grayish-white deathly toxic mist into ash. A piercing sting hit the filthy venom maiden deeply, causing her to flinch. No, impossible. The Buddha's Fury Reincarnation erupted, with radiant, scorching energy pouring out. Brilliant and dazzling, it carried a violent energy storm that completely shattered the filthy venom maiden's domain, sending terrifying waves of force screaming through the air. At this moment, the people gathered around the altar square struggled to lift their heads. They saw Xiao Yin, his body surrounded by the fiery storm, and the filthy venom maiden, pale, her skin devoid of color, even showing signs of an eerie, withered appearance. Die for me. Just as victory seemed assured, the filthy venom maiden's eyes glowed with a strange dark red, and suddenly, countless grayish-white flames ignited on her withered skin. With Xiao Yin watching, the flames coalesced into a streak of lightning, shooting towards him. Boom! Faced with the filthy venom maiden's furious strike, Xiao Yin remained calm, clenching his fist. Layers of heavy blue dragon scales, combined with the sacred flame, formed a fierce fiery fist that he threw forward. The raging attack seemed to carry a terrifying force capable of piercing the poisonous mist. It tore through the skies and hit the filthy venom maiden with overwhelming power. Thud! Grayish-white, eerie blood sprayed from the corner of the filthy venom maiden's mouth, her once grand body deflating like a punctured balloon, falling lifelessly to the ground. The eerie blood dripped from her lips, leaving a tragic scene. Her entire body, as though drained of all strength, was sent hurtling toward the three palaces' stone seat at the altar's center. Thud! As the fiery fist dissipated, the fiery storm behind Xiao Yin shook violently. A chilling sensation surged, as though something strange had latched onto his body when he struck the filthy venom maiden. A bug. Looking at his fist, where some flesh seemed to vanish, Xiao Yan's gaze locked onto the demonic Moon Palace Master as the filthy venom maiden fell. Truly an extraordinary character. The Holy Maiden has such a powerful ally. It seems that this time, several powerful members of the Poison God Palace nodded in agreement. At this moment, no one dared underestimate the man named Xiao Yin. Brother Xiao Yan's strength has clearly grown even stronger. Xun'er sat on the stone seat, watching Xiao Yin without any mishap. She gently pressed her chest with both hands. This doesn't feel right. Beside her, little fairy doctor had no expression of joy. Instead, her beautiful eyes were filled with deep apprehension. Xun'er, if anything happens, Senior Mirror Moon will take you all away. Once you leave, don't return. With a sigh, as the filthy venom maiden's falling body drew closer, little fairy doctor gritted her teeth and exchanged a glance with Mirror Moon Palace Master. There was clearly something sinister inside the filthy venom maiden's body, a presence that only the two of them could vaguely sense. Crack! The filthy venom maiden fell with a thud, yet no one stepped forward to catch her. Her withered body slammed onto the altar before the demonic Moon Palace Master, creating a massive pit tens of meters deep. At this moment, not a single person spoke. Everyone quietly watched the high-ranking figures standing on the altar. The filthy venom maiden of the demonic Moon Palace has been defeated. The elder who was overseeing the situation narrowed his eyes and cast a glance at Yao Yu, then turned away, completely disregarding the life or death of the filthy venom maiden. In the distance, Long Qingchun and Lung Yuning both wore solemn expressions, their hearts sinking. Heh, Yao Yu Palace Master. Is this the so-called genius with the poison god's potential that your Yao Yu Palace has nurtured? Looks like it's nothing special after all. After a long while, an inexplicable and immense force surged forth, and a heavy pressure descended upon the world, filling the air with a sense of impending collapse. Yao Yu remained unfazed, without any reaction. Holy Maiden, release the holy venomous pill and announce the will of the poison god to the world. From today onwards, our poison god palace will welcome the fourth poison god after countless cycles of reincarnation. The Mirror Moon Palace Master's eyes were filled with fervor, looking at the core members of the poison god palace with admiration. Poison pill. Activate. Little fairy doctor stepped forward, and an ancient, verdant pill slowly rose from her body, scattering from her red lips. The ancient and powerful breath of the poison god spread out like ripples, and the terrifying pressure caused the members of the poison god palace, except for the three palace masters and a few powerful individuals, to tremble. All their powers were uncontrollable, and they directly bowed in submission. Yao Yu, at this point, do you still have any arguments to make? After completing this, Mirror Moon turned around, her tone stern. Good. Very good. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Yao Yu gently rose from her stone seat, then looked at little fairy doctor, who had the reincarnation seal and the holy venomous pill. She clapped her hands. This person. Xiao Yin and Xun'er stood by little fairy doctor's side, watching Yao Yu's strange actions closely. Poof! A soft sound rang out, but it sent a chilling, deathly sensation through the powerful figures present. To think it failed, all that effort wasted. Crack! Yao Yu extended her hand and gently inhaled towards the deep pit before her, bringing the deathly pale, filthy venom maiden back into view. Master! Master! I was wrong. A faint yellow glow appeared in Yao Yu's palm, continuously flowing into the filthy venom maiden's body, seemingly communicating or extracting something. Good, it won't hurt after just a little push. Yao Yu grinned, holding the filthy venom maiden's throat, wearing an expression that seemed harmless, but in the filthy venom maiden's eyes, she resembled a demon, causing great fear. Crack! With a slight twist, Yao Yu violently snapped the filthy venom maiden's throat open, blood spurting out as her pupils shrank in horror. The sound of breaking bones was ear-piercing, and at the same time, the filthy venom maiden's mouth gently opened, releasing a tiny yellow insect, the size of a fingertip, crawling out with an aura of trembling fear. Be careful. As the yellow insect appeared, an indescribable pressure weighed on everyone, making their breathing slow down. However, one thing was certain. The filthy venom maiden was dead, and she died at the hands of Yao Yu, the Yao Yu Palace Master. Whoosh whoosh. After all these years of planning, I never expected it to be ruined by you few. But it doesn't matter. From today onwards, the entire Poison God Palace will be under my command. Ha ha ha. A loud, arrogant laugh echoed. Before Xiao Yin and the others could react, those whose bodies were suppressed by little fairy doctor's poison pill exploded, and yellow insects the size of fingers crawled out of their bodies, slowly gathering toward Yao Yu. These insects didn't contain any other power, just an extremely pure and vast energy. Gulp! At this moment, Xiao Yin and Xun'er turned pale, as the massive swarm of poison insects surged, and the energy within had already reached an unimaginable level. It was clear now that except for those present, almost everyone else in the Poison God Palace was under Yao Yu's control. This was a grand ceremony, a path to becoming the Poison God, but who would emerge victorious was still uncertain. Master! With a raised arm, the yellow, eerie poisonous insects surged from the bodies of everyone, gathering before Yao Yu. And almost all the powerful members of the Poison God Palace raised their heads. Their pupils were filled with strange yellow ripples, and they looked at Yao Yu Palace Master with great respect, speaking humbly. This is despicable, to plant poison triggers in the bodies of those from the same sect. At this moment, Mirror Moon Palace Master nodded slightly, then stepped forward, shielding little fairy doctor along with Xiao Yin. But only she knew that this election had always been planned this way. This madwoman secretly controlled so many powerful Poison God Palace members. This is the Poison God's Guide. Yao Yu, you dared to invade the Poison God's resting place and steal the Poison God's Guide. The elder, who controlled the situation, was filled with endless rage in his chest. He raised his palm, and a dense poisonous mist surged, suddenly spreading across his entire hand. The mysterious waves of the poisonous mist gathered and shot toward the position of the Demon Moon Palace Master. The howling wind rang in their ears as an ancient, cyan-green handprint descended from the sky. The void trembled, and even some residual waves scattered, turning surrounding mountains into powder. In a deep pit thousands of meters wide, a suffocating poisonous mist spread, constantly swirling. Mirror Moon. The Demon Moon Palace Master showed no fear of the elder controlling the situation. Instead, a trace of disdain appeared on her lips. Now, with the situation firmly in hand, everything was under her control. Poof! A palm strike from a fourfold reincarnation stage expert, full of anger, was enough to destroy heaven and earth. However, on this desolate altar, a graceful figure emerged, with slender hands holding a bright black mirror, appearing before the Demon Moon Palace Master. The mirror flipped, and mysterious power radiated. Though a few cracks appeared due to the terrifying attack, the attack was completely resisted. Cold Moon has also been controlled. Palace Master Lung Qingchen, the two poison maidens of Cold Moon Palace, and Xiao exchanged glances, unable to believe how things had developed to this point. Mirror Moon, at this point, do you have any last words? The Demon Moon Palace Master blinked her long eyelashes and then spoke elegantly to the remaining 7 people. Xiao, Xun'er, Little Fairy Doctor, Mirror Moon Palace Master, the Elder controlling the situation, the 2 poison maidens of Cold Moon Palace. These 7 were facing nearly the top combat forces of the Poison God Palace. Just Cold Moon Palace Master alone was enough to cause them to fail completely, because Cold Moon Palace Master's strength had reached the fourfold reincarnation stage. If even a fourfold reincarnation stage expert could be controlled, one could imagine the terrifying power of this Demon Moon. Humph! Little Fairy Doctor and Mirror Moon exchanged a glance, seemingly already anticipating this moment. Immediately, ancient cyan green energy began to seep out from both of their bodies. Master, should we kill them all? Cold Moon, along with a few other experts at the reincarnation stage, knelt beside the Demon Moon Palace Master, casting venomous glances at Xiao and the others. A poisonous insect faintly moved on their foreheads. In addition, their eyes carried a strange, demonic glow, and after absorbing much of their origin from the previous yellow insect, they had now become Demon Moon's poison servants. If they couldn't defeat Demon Moon and break the control soon, their souls would eventually be completely eroded. At that time, even a great Luo Golden Immortal would be powerless to stop it. Actually, I'm curious. Why did you still choose to participate in the election even though you knew it was a scheme? Or do you still have hope in the Grand Elder Palace? What a pity! The entire Poison God Palace has already fallen into my hands. Even if you go to the Grand Elder Palace, my trusted subordinates are stationed there. This time I win. The Demon Moon Palace Master spoke softly, smiling slyly. Perhaps. Mirror Moon Palace Master didn't argue. Now, in the Poison God Palace, only the 3 Palace Masters were top combatants. No other expert had strength beyond the fourfold reincarnation stage. This election, with the lives of Little Fairy Doctor and the others as stakes, was naturally meant to attract the top combat forces under Demon Moon, preparing for Xiao infiltration into the Grand Elder Palace. Fortunately, the situation wasn't as bad as it seemed. Poof! The Demon Moon Palace Master raised her palm, and an ethereal realm emerged from the void above the altar, pulling the 3 Palace Masters and the Elder controlling the situation into it. Clearly, this person wanted a quick resolution. Once the Mirror Moon Palace Master and the others fell, the remaining people would likely be no threat. Xiao, soon the Palace Master will send you all out of here. As the poisonous servants drew closer, the overwhelming pressure brought them closer to death. Little Fairy Doctor couldn't help but speak. Don't worry. Xiao didn't respond with words, but lightly patted Little Fairy Doctor's shoulder, transmitting an immense wave of power. Little Fairy Doctor, don't worry. Xiao, I'll take care of it here. You go ahead. Xun'er smiled sweetly, golden flames spreading from her body, slowing the advance of the poisonous servants around them. Demon, return. Xiao aura rapidly shifted, and his dark green eyes narrowed as he gazed at a cloud formation in the high sky above the altar. Within it, there seemed to be an incredibly terrifying fluctuation, one that resembled the power controlling these poisonous servants. The fusion of blood, flesh, soul, and body, a sinister force that should not exist in the great thousand worlds, rose like a demon emerging from the abyss. The power of the demon began to awaken within him, and every surge that flowed through his limbs and bones made Xiao heart and mind tremble violently, like molten blood coursing through his veins. It seemed that the power of the demon had no upper limit. It would grow stronger as Xiao strength increased. Of course, this was only possible if Xiao could control it and withstand the terrifying agony of the demon power spreading throughout his body. Otherwise, if he lost himself in this torment, even with the demonic cube, he would descend into a mere killing machine, a demon. A dark green halo spread out, exuding an incredibly evil aura the moment it appeared. The surrounding poison servants immediately stopped in their tracks, their eyes filled with awe as they gazed at Xiao. Demon, endless evil aura. The demon Xiao roared, and in the next instant, his body vanished mysteriously. Bang! 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 When he reappeared, it was in front of a strange layer of clouds high above the altar. With a wave of his fist, he struck at the sky. As his fist struck, the endless clouds scattered, and even the void where the clouds dwelled was violently torn apart by Xiao's seemingly simple punch, creating a massive space crater nearly 100 feet deep. From the depths of the pit, a large, bloated figure slowly crawled out.